They don't want you to know this. The file came stamped, eyes only, triple sealed, hand-delivered by a courier who wouldn't meet my gaze. Commander James Locke, 4th Special Operations Group. That's me. 32 missions across 4 continents. I've breached compounds in Kandahar, cleared tunnels in Mosul, pulled wounded from burning Humvees in places that don't exist on maps. None of it prepared me for the Scottish Highlands in October. Our briefing was surgical. Recover classified materials from Facility Blackwater, a Cold War research station abandoned since 1944. Intelligence suggested Soviet interest. Time-sensitive extraction. Standard black bag operation. Dr. Miriam Chen would accompany us. DARPA liaison. Clearance level I couldn't pronounce. The kind of scientist who speaks in equations and looks through you like you're transparent. We took the northern route through Glen Affric. Sergeant Rowan Hayes drove, knuckles white on the wheel. 23 years old, signals expert, could crack enemy comms in 3 languages but jumped at shadows. Behind us, Corporal Finn Morrison checked his explosives for the 4th time. Demo specialist, Glasgow accent thick as morning fog, the kind of soldier who laughed too loud because silence made him nervous. The mist came first. It rolled across the road like something living, gray and dense, swallowing the landscape. One moment I could see the ridgeline, the next, nothing but white. Rowan eased off the accelerator, the engine's growl softened to a purr. "No birds," Finn said from the back seat. He was right. The Highlands should have been alive with them. Grouse, ravens, hawks. Instead, silence. Complete. The kind that makes your ears ring searching for sound. Even the wind had died. The mist hung motionless, pressed against the windows like hands. Miriam didn't look up from her tablet. "The facility is 3 kilometers northeast. We're on schedule." "Doctor," I said, "what exactly were they researching here?" "Human consciousness." She tapped her screen. Specifically, how far it could be pushed before breaking. Rowan's radio crackled. The perimeter fence was NATO standard, 12 feet of chain link topped with razor wire, now rusted orange and sagging. The gates stood open, not damaged, not cut, open, as if someone had unlocked them from the inside and walked away. "Advise command we're breaching the facility," I said. Rowan keyed his radio. Static answered. He tried again, adjusted frequencies, ran through the emergency channels. Nothing but white noise and that persistent whisper underneath, too faint to parse. "Comms are dead, sir." "Equipment failure?" He held up his handheld unit. "Both systems? Simultaneously?" "No, sir." Finn chambered around in his rifle. The metallic click echoed wrong, too sharp, lasting too long. "I don't like this." "Noted. We proceed as planned. Stay tight. Watch your sectors." The facility entrance was a concrete bunker built into the hillside, reinforced door standing open like the gates. Soviet paranoia met British engineering. 3-foot thick walls, blast-proof construction, designed to survive anything except time. Moss grew across the entrance in patterns that looked almost deliberate, almost like writing. I clicked on my tack light. The beam cut through darkness that seemed thicker than it should be, revealing a corridor sloping downward. Water stains traced the walls in vertical lines. The air smelled of rust and something else. Something organic and wrong. "Temperature's dropping," Miriam said, breath misting. She wore a thin jacket, inadequate for the cold, but didn't seem to notice. Her eyes were fixed ahead, pupils dilated in a way that had nothing to do with the darkness. We descended. The corridor stretched longer than the hillside's dimensions allowed. Basic geometry said we should have reached the back wall already, but the passage kept going, deeper, the floor sloping at an angle that made my inner ear protest. Emergency lighting flickered overhead. Impossible. The facility had been dead for 80 years, casting shadows that moved a half-second behind us. Finn noticed it first. He stopped, aimed his light backward. Our shadows stretched across the floor and walls, distorted by the uneven surfaces. But when he moved his arm, his shadow hesitated. Miriam moved to the research corridor without waiting for orders. I caught her arm. "We stay together, Doctor." She looked at my hand on her sleeve, then at me. Her expression was clinical, distant. "Commander, whatever's down here has been waiting 80 years. A few more minutes won't matter." But she was wrong about that. We took the medical corridor first. Standard sweep protocol. Finn on point, Rowan covering rear, Miriam and me center. The passage was narrower than the main hub, forcing us into single file. Our footsteps echoed strangely, the sound bouncing back fractured and multiplied. The infirmary was small. 6 beds, 3 on each side, stripped of mattresses. Medical equipment rusted into abstract sculptures. An examination table stood in the center, restraints hanging open like broken wings. Dried blood, oxidized black, stained the leather straps. "They did something here," Rowan whispered. "Something bad." Finn moved to the far wall where a mirror hung, bolted directly to the concrete. 4 feet tall, 2 feet wide. The glass somehow intact despite decades of abandonment. No cracks, no dust. The reflection was perfect, too perfect. Why bolt a mirror to a wall? Finn reached toward it. "Don't touch," I started. His fingers brushed the glass. The lights flickered. When they steadied, Finn's reflection was still looking at us, but Finn himself had turned toward a medicine cabinet. His reflection's head tracked us slowly, independently, while the real Finn rummaged through empty shelves. "Finn," I said carefully, "step away from the mirror." "What?" He glanced back. In the mirror, his reflection smiled. Finn's actual face was neutral. "I'm just checking for..." His reflection tilted its head 45 degrees, a movement no human neck should make. The smile widened, showing too many teeth, while Finn remained oblivious, his back to the glass. Rowan's hand was shaking on his rifle. "Sir, we need to..." The reflection's eyes rolled back, black sockets, staring at nothing while its mouth opened, wider, unhinging like a snake's jaw. A sound came from somewhere, not the mirror, not Finn, but from the walls themselves. A low moan that felt like it was vibrating through my bones. Then Finn turned around. The reflection snapped back to normal instantly. Perfect mimicry. He looked at us, at the mirror, back to us. "What's wrong?" None of us answered immediately. "How do you explain what you just saw?" We swept the medical wing room by room. Each space told the same story of sudden abandonment. Chairs overturned, papers scattered, doors left open. But it was the operating theater that stopped us cold. The room was circular, domed ceiling lined with observation windows. Surgical lights hung on articulated arms, arranged in a pattern that seemed less medical and more ritualistic. In the center stood an operating table, but not like any I'd seen. Restraints at the wrists, ankles, neck, and forehead. Wires sprouted from the headrest, thick cables that ran to banks of equipment lining the walls, oscilloscopes, voltmeters, machines I couldn't identify. They were running current through patients' brains, Miriam said, examining a control panel. Dust covered everything except where her fingers traced the switches. High voltage. Repeated sessions. The log should indicate... Logs? I interrupted. What logs? She paused, realizing her mistake. I mean, if there were logs, hypothetically. Doctor, have you been here before? No. Too quick. Too defensive. but I've read the preliminary reports. Before they were classified, Finn had moved to the observation windows. Something's wrong with these. He was right. The glass was intact but fogged, condensation beading on the inside. Impossible. The room was freezing. Condensation requires heat differential. I moved closer, wiped a clear spot with my glove. A face stared back at me from the other side. I jerked backward, weapon up, light cutting through the darkness beyond the window. The observation room was empty. Dust, debris, shadows, nothing else. But I'd seen it clearly. Pale skin, hollow eyes, mouth open in a silent scream. Contact? Rowan spun, covering the entrance. Negative. Thought I saw. I trailed off. How do you file that in an after-action report? That's when we heard it. Boots on concrete. Rhythmic. Measured. The unmistakable cadence of a military march. Coming from deeper in the complex. Multiple footfalls. Synchronized. Approaching our position. We froze. Finn clicked off his tack light. In the darkness, I counted the steps. 8 soldiers, maybe 10, moving with parade ground precision. Getting closer. I hand signaled. Defensive positions. We took cover behind the equipment banks, weapons trained on the corridor entrance. The marching grew louder, echoing through the facility's acoustic maze. I could hear individual boots now, the slight scrape of heel on concrete, the whisper of fabric moving. They were right outside. The marching stopped. We waited. Seconds stretched. My finger rested alongside the trigger guard, breathing controlled, heart hammering against my ribs. Through my night vision optic, the corridor glowed green and empty. "Where are they?" Finn breathed. As if answering, something scraped across the floor above us. Slow, deliberate, like something being dragged. Then another sound. 3 knocks on concrete, evenly spaced. We found the archive in the operations wing, steel cabinets lining a rectangular room, each drawer meticulously labeled with alphanumeric codes. The filing system was German in origin, typical of joint Allied Nazi scientific exchanges that officially never happened. Miriam went straight to cabinet A7C, as if she knew exactly where to look. She pulled files with practiced efficiency, spreading them across a dusty table. Her flashlight caught words I wished it hadn't. Project Blackwater, Neurological Threshold Experiments. Subject 23. Sustained consciousness after clinical death, 47 minutes. Breakthrough. Subjects report contact with the frequency. I picked up a photograph clipped to one file. A soldier, maybe 19 years old, strapped to the chair we'd just seen. Wires disappearing into his shaved scalp. His eyes were open but completely black, pupils dilated to consume the iris. And he was smiling. They were trying to weaponize consciousness, I said, reading the reports. Push the human mind beyond death. Access. What? Another dimension? Parallel reality? Not parallel. Miriam's voice was soft, almost reverent. Adjacent. Overlapping. A frequency we normally can't perceive. Doctor, how do you know this? She looked up, and in the harsh flashlight beam her eyes seemed darker than they should be, because Project Blackwater didn't fail, Commander. It succeeded, and that's why we're really here. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in as many seconds. Our breath came in thick clouds. Frost crawled across the metal cabinets, forming patterns that looked geometric, intentional. In the beam of my flashlight, the frost crystals spelled out words. Welcome back. Jesus Christ, Rowan whispered. Finn backed toward the door. We're leaving. Right now. Mission abort, sir. We abort and... The door slammed shut. All four of us spun toward it. No wind, no mechanism. It simply closed, the heavy metal frame seating with a decisive click. Finn grabbed the handle, yanked, locked. He put his shoulder into it. The door didn't budge. "Blow it," I ordered. "Finn, set charge." He keyed his handset. Static answered, but underneath it, something else. Voices, overlapping, speaking in languages I didn't recognize. And underneath that, a low hum that made my teeth ache. Then his radio spoke clearly. "We are still here." The voice was hollow, layered, like multiple people speaking in perfect synchronization. Rowan dropped the handset like it had burned him. It hit the floor but kept transmitting, that terrible chorus repeating, "We are still here. We are still here. We are still." Rowan's eyes rolled back. His body went rigid, back arching, mouth opening impossibly wide. When he spoke, it was with that same hollow voice. "We never left." Rowan collapsed. Finn caught him, eased him to the floor, but the kid was seizing, heels drumming against concrete, fingers clawed. White foam flecked his lips. His eyes had rolled back so far I could only see bloodshot whites. "Medical emergency," I said, though I knew our radios were useless. "Miriam, is there a—" She was gone. I spun, light cutting through the darkness. The archive room was empty except for us. The files remained spread across the table, but Miriam had vanished. No sound of footsteps, no door opening, just gone. "Where the hell?" Finn started. Rowan sat up, not slowly, not groggily. He simply transitioned from prone to sitting in one fluid motion. No hands to push himself up, muscles moving in ways anatomy doesn't allow. His head turned toward us with mechanical precision. "Sergeant Hayes?" I kept my voice level, but my hand drifted to my sidearm. "Can you hear me?" His mouth moved. The voice that came out was wrong, too deep, resonating from somewhere other than his throat. "He hears you. He hears everything. We all do." Who's we? The ones who waited, the ones who learned, the ones who exist in the spaces between your thoughts. Rowan's head tilted 45 degrees, mimicking the movement we'd seen in the mirror. "You came back. Finally, we've been so alone." Finn's rifle was shaking. "That's not Rowan." "No," the thing wearing Rowan's face agreed. "But he's still here, watching, screaming. He's been screaming since the moment you entered our home." The lights flickered back on, but wrong. They pulsed arrhythmically, casting shadows that moved independent of their sources. In the strobing light, I saw figures standing in the corners of the room, soldiers in 1940s British uniforms, translucent, faces slack and empty. They watched us with eyes that reflected no light. One of them raised its hand, pointed at Rowan, made a gesture like turning a key. Rowan's body began to change. His skin rippled, shadows gathering beneath the surface like— The creature released me, stumbled back. For just a moment, Rowan's real eyes surfaced, wide with terror and pleading. His mouth formed words without sound. "Kill me." Then the darkness swallowed him whole. The shadows in the corners converged, flowing across the floor like liquid, wrapping around Rowan's body, pulling him backward into the wall. Not through a door, into the concrete itself. The wall rippled, accepted him, and went solid. He was gone. The lights stabilized. The phantom soldiers faded. Finn and I stood alone in the archive, breathing hard, the only evidence of what just happened being 3 bullet holes in the far wall and a smear of something dark and oily on the floor. "What do we do?" Finn's voice cracked. "Sir?" What the hell do we do? I picked up Rowan's radio from the floor. The screen was cracked, but it still functioned. I keyed the transmit button. This is Commander Locke. We have sustained casualties. Mission parameters have changed. If anyone can hear this, do not send additional teams. Facility Blackwater is compromised. Repeat, do not. Static answered. Then, underneath it, Rowan's voice, distant and distorted. Don't open the door. The same warning from the Jeep. The same warning we'd ignored. We found Miriam at the research corridor, standing before a massive steel door. 8 feet tall, 4 feet wide. The kind of blast-proof construction you see on nuclear bunkers. A wheel lock mechanism sat dead center, red stenciling above it, barely legible. Core laboratory. Authorized personnel only. "Doctor," I said, weapon trained on her back. "Step away from the door." She didn't turn. "They need us to open it, Commander. They can't do it themselves. That's why they let us in. Why they took Sergeant Hayes. To motivate us. We're leaving. Now." There is no leaving. She finally turned, and I saw she'd been crying. Mascara tracked down her cheeks, but her eyes were bright, almost feverish. There never was. The moment we crossed the threshold, we became part of the facility, part of the experiment. Finn kept his rifle on her. "She's lying. Has to be." "Am I?" "Then explain how we've been walking for 3 hours in a complex that's only 300 meters across. Explain the marching boots. Explain what happened to Sergeant Hayes." I wanted to argue. Couldn't. Every tactical instinct I had was screaming to extract, to run. But she was right about one thing. We'd been descending for hours through a facility that shouldn't extend more than 50 meters underground. "What's behind the door?" I asked. The truth. She placed her hand on the wheel lock. The reason for all of this. The reason 47 researchers and 123 test subjects vanished on October 31st, 1944. They didn't disappear, Commander. They transcended. Transcended, Finn repeated flatly. Into what? Something magnificent. She smiled, and in that moment she looked like the thing that had worn Rowan's face. "Help me open it." "No." "Then I'll do it myself." She gripped the wheel, started turning. The metal groaned. Rust flaked away in red clouds. The mechanism was seized, corroded by decades, but the core lab was vast. Our lights couldn't find the far walls, but we could see what filled the space. Chairs, hundreds of them, arranged in concentric circles, all facing inward toward a central point. Each chair held a body, strapped in place with leather restraints gone brittle with age. Wires emerged from their skulls, ran to junction boxes, then to a massive apparatus in the center, something that looked like a Tesla coil mated with a radio antenna. The bodies were mummified, desiccated, mouths open in silent screams. And they were twitching, small movements, a finger flexing, an eyelid fluttering, a jaw working soundlessly, all of them moving in perfect synchronization, as if controlled by a single consciousness. "My God," Finn whispered. Miriam walked to the center, spreading her arms. "Do you see? They found it, the frequency that exists between life and death. And they're still there, still broadcasting. Still." One of the bodies sat up. Restraints snapped like thread. The corpse, and I knew it was a corpse, the flesh was mummified, the clothes rotted, turned its head toward us. Empty eye sockets, somehow seeing. Then another sat up. And another. And another. All around us the dead were waking. "They're not dead," Miriam said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "They never died. That's what Project Blackwater discovered. Consciousness doesn't end, it transforms, moves to a different frequency. These people are still here, still aware, existing in a state we can't comprehend." The corpses rose from their chairs in waves, dozens at first, then hundreds, standing in concentric circles around us. They didn't move like living people. They moved like puppets, joints bending at wrong angles, heads tilting too far, feet dragging. I backed toward the door, keeping Finn beside me. "How do you know this?" "Because I've been here before." She laughed, high and brittle. "Not physically, but I've touched the frequency. DARPA didn't send me to recover data, Commander. They sent me to finish what started in 1944. "Finish what?" "The bridge." She gestured to the central apparatus. They opened a door between realities but couldn't stabilize it. It collapsed, trapped them in between. But with modern technology, proper calculations, the right catalyst. She looked at me, at Finn, fresh consciousness. Living minds to anchor the connection. "You're insane." "No, I'm evolved." She walked to the apparatus, began manipulating controls that shouldn't work, that couldn't work after 80 years. But power hummed through the machinery. Lights flickered on the junction boxes. The wires leading to the corpses began to glow with foxfire. Imagine it, instant communication across any distance. Consciousness transferred into machines. Immortality, the end of death itself. The corpses moved closer. Their movements were synchronizing, becoming fluid, organized. They were learning how to move again. "Miriam, step away from the machine." "Or what? You'll shoot me?" She turned, and her eyes had gone completely black. "I'm already gone, Commander. I volunteered for the first trial 3 months ago. What you're talking to is just an echo, a memory of who I was, piloting this body long enough to complete the mission." Finn's voice was steady, despite everything. "What's the mission?" "To feed the bridge, to give it what it needs to stabilize." She smiled. "There were too many. We fired, dropped 3, 5, 8, but they kept coming. Some crawled with shattered legs. Others pulled themselves forward with broken arms. They felt no pain, showed no fear, driven by whatever consciousness puppeteered their dead flesh." "Explosives!" I shouted. "Finn, collapse the ceiling!" He didn't need to be told twice. Finn yanked charges from his pack, slapping them on the support columns flanking the entrance. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, but I could see the terror in his eyes. We'd trained for firefights, for hostage rescue, for urban warfare. Nobody trains for the dead rising. A corpse grabbed my ankle. I looked down. Its face was a woman's, maybe 30 when she died. Dried flesh pulled tight over bone. Her jaw worked soundlessly, trying to speak. I kicked free, put a round through her skull. She kept coming, crawling now, dragging herself forward with determination no dead thing should possess. "Charges set!" Finn shouted. 30 seconds! We ran for the door. Behind us, Miriam's laughter echoed through the chamber, amplified by whatever she'd become. The corpses converged on the central apparatus, forming a living, no, unliving, wall between us and her. 20 seconds. We hit the corridor, kept running. The door began to close behind us, that massive blast-proof seal engaging with mechanical precision. Through the narrowing gap, I saw Miriam standing calm amid the chaos, arms raised like a conductor before an orchestra. 15 seconds. "Finn, move!" He was ahead of me, legs pumping. We took a corner too fast, nearly collided with the wall. The facility seemed different now, corridors twisting in ways they hadn't before, angles that made my eyes hurt. 10 seconds. "Sir?" Finn stopped. Dead end. We'd hit a wall that shouldn't exist, a corridor that didn't match my mental map. Behind us, footsteps echoed. Many footsteps, accompanied by the sound of flesh dragging on concrete. 5 seconds. "Through here!" He pointed to a maintenance hatch, small but maybe large enough. We'd have to crawl, be vulnerable, but no choice. 3 seconds. I looked back. He started crawling forward. The tunnel was narrow, forcing us to drag ourselves commando-style through accumulated filth. Water dripped somewhere ahead. After 50 meters, the tunnel opened into a junction, 3 passages branching off. "Which way?" Finn asked. Before I could answer, his flashlight, somehow working again despite being broken, illuminated something on the wall. A mirror. Small, maybe 2 feet square, bolted to the concrete like the one in the infirmary. "Oh no," Finn whispered. "No, no, no." His reflection looked back at him, smiled, waved. Finn wasn't smiling, wasn't waving. "Get away from it," I said. Too late. The reflection reached out, hand passing through the glass like water. Finn screamed as his reflection grabbed his wrist, yanked. He was pulled toward the mirror, boots scrabbling for purchase on the wet concrete. "Commander, help me!" I grabbed his legs, pulled against whatever force dragged him forward. For a moment we matched, stalemate. Then something else grabbed Finn. Multiple hands, reaching from the mirror, dozens of them, pulling with impossible strength. "Sir, don't let go. Please don't!" His reflection grinned wider, mouthed words. "Thank you." Finn's belt snapped. The buckle broke, his tactical vest tore. He slid forward, shoulders entering the mirror, upper body disappearing into the glass that rippled like mercury. His legs kicked once, twice, then went still. I pulled anyway, hauling his dead weight, refusing to accept what I was seeing. But when I finally dragged him free, only his lower half came with me. No blood, no gore, just clean separation at the waist, as if the top half simply ceased to exist. His equipment clattered to the floor. Radio, magazines, grenades, all present. But Finn was gone. In the mirror, I saw his reflection standing among the corpses we'd tried to escape. He looked at me, raised his hand to the glass from the other side, and silently screamed. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at what remained of Corporal Finn Morrison. Time had become fluid, unreliable. My watch said 3:47 a.m., but I remembered checking it just minutes ago and seeing 6:23 a.m. Causality was breaking down. The mirror rippled. Not Finn this time, something else. The glass surface bulged outward, stretching like a membrane, and faces emerged. Not corpse faces. Living faces. People I knew. My ex-wife Sarah. My daughter Emma, 8 years old, gap-toothed smile. Lieutenant Hayes from my first deployment in Helmand Province, killed by an IED in 2014. They pressed against the glass from the other side, mouths moving, eyes pleading. "It's not real," I said aloud, needing to hear it. "They're not really there." But Emma's face twisted with hurt. "Daddy, why did you leave us? Why did you choose them over us?" Sarah's voice, tinny and distant. "You were always gone. Even when you were home, you were somewhere else." Lieutenant Hayes, blood running from his eyes. "You should have died with us. You should have stayed." The maintenance tunnel warped. Walls curved inward, floor tilting at impossible angles. The junction wasn't 3 passages anymore, it was 6, then 9, then too many to count, corridors spiraling off into dimensions my brain couldn't process. And something was forming in the air above me. Not solid, not vapor, something in between. It coalesced from the shadows, from the whispers, from the accumulated consciousness of everyone who died screaming in this place. Faces emerged and dissolved within its mass. Soldiers, scientists, test subjects, all of them crying out in voices that harmonized into a single terrible note. The entity had no fixed shape. It was geometry that shouldn't exist, angles that made my eyes bleed to perceive. Where it touched the walls, reality warped. Concrete became transparent, revealing the screaming void beneath. The maintenance tunnel wasn't underground anymore. It was floating in nothing, surrounded by endless dark. And in that darkness, it was right. I could feel it now, something moving inside me, a presence that had been growing since the gate, since the first whisper on Rowan's radio. We hadn't been exploring the facility. The facility had been digesting us, slowly, carefully, breaking down our resistance, our sanity, our grip on consensus reality. We were already ghosts. We just didn't know it yet. The entity reached for me with appendages that existed in more dimensions than I could count. They passed through my body without touching, but I felt them anyway. Cold fingers rifling through my memories, my fears, my understanding of self. Perfect. Soldier, trained to suppress emotion. Perfect anchor. Perfect bridge. Get out of my head. Never in, always there. You invited us. Every time you looked, every time you listened. I fired my rifle. The bullets passed through the entity without effect, through the tunnel walls that were no longer solid, disappearing into the void beyond. The magazine clicked empty. I dropped it, fumbled for another, but my hands were shaking too badly. The faces in the mirror multiplied. Emma, Sarah, Hayes, joined by Rowan, his features slack and dead. Finn, bisected, top and bottom halves floating separately. Miriam, eyes black as event horizons, smiling like she'd won some cosmic lottery. And behind them all, standing in the shadows, myself. My reflection stepped forward through the press of faces. It looked exactly like me. Every scar, every line, the exhaustion in the eyes, the gray in the stubble. But it moved wrong, too smooth, too precise. It pressed its hand against the glass from the other side, waiting. Time to come home, the entity whispered. Time to stop fighting. My reflection mouthed words. Join us. And God help me, part of me wanted to. The part that was tired of fighting, tired of carrying dead friends, tired of the nightmares and the guilt and the weight of impossible decisions. The entity promised an end to all of it. Not death, something beyond death. Transformation, evolution, release. I raised my hand, and I was in Helmand Province, 2014, the day Hayes died. The sun was white-hot overhead, sand everywhere, in my boots, my rifle, my mouth. We were running convoy security, 3 Humvees on Route Silver, when the world exploded. The lead vehicle lifted, flipped, came down on its roof. Fire and smoke, and the screaming started. Dismount! Defensive positions! I was shouting, pulling Hayes from the burning wreck. His legs shredded below the knee, blood everywhere. Too much blood. Commander, he gasped, grabbing my vest. Commander, leave me. Get the others out. Negative. We don't leave people behind. Sir, please. But I was already applying a tourniquet, calling for medevac, doing everything by the book. Everything right. Everything that didn't matter, because Hayes died anyway. Bled out in my arms while I told him he'd be fine, that help was coming, that he'd see his daughter's graduation. Lies, all lies, and he knew it. The look in his eyes as the light faded, not accusation. Worse, pity. The memory dissolved, reformed. I was in my ex-wife's kitchen, Emma at the table doing homework. Sarah stood by the window, arms crossed, not looking at me. "You're deploying again." "It's what I do. It's what you choose." She turned, and her eyes were wet. "Emma asked me why Daddy doesn't love us anymore." "That's not fair." "Fair? You've been home 3 weeks in the last year. You missed her birthday. You missed Christmas. You're a ghost, James. Even when you're here, you're not here. You're always somewhere else, fighting someone else's war." "Someone has to. Someone, not you, not anymore." "But you won't stop, will you? Because it's easier. Easier to face bullets than to face us. Easier to be a hero to strangers than a father to your daughter." Emma looked up from her homework. Her eyes were black, completely black. She smiled with too many teeth. "Daddy left because we weren't worth staying for." "No, and in each one, I saw them. The dead. All the dead I'd accumulated over 15 years of service. Not just soldiers, civilians, children, old men. Everyone caught in the crossfire. Everyone I couldn't save. Everyone I ordered into danger. They crawled toward me on broken limbs. They reached with burned hands. They whispered in languages I didn't speak but somehow understood. Why? Why us? Why not you?" Lieutenant Hayes was among them, moving on bleeding stumps where his legs should be. "You could have saved me, sir. If you'd checked that road, if you'd rerouted, if you'd done your job." "I tried. Not hard enough." He grabbed my throat with hands that were just bone now, flesh long rotted. "Never hard enough. And now we're all here, in the dark, in the cold, because you failed." My rifle was gone. My gear was gone. I stood in dress blues, my chest covered in medals I didn't deserve, my hands covered in blood that wouldn't wash away. The entity coalesced around us, incorporating the dead into its mass. They became part of it, their faces pressed against the membrane of its existence, mouths open in perpetual screams. "See? Everyone you touch, everyone you lead, everyone you love, they all end here, in us, because of you." "No," my voice was hoarse. "This isn't real. You're just showing me my fears." "Fears are real. Guilt is real. Failure is real." The entity pulsed, and with each pulse, more faces appeared in its mass. More dead. More lost. "And soon you will be real too. Really dead. Really gone. Really one of us." Hayes tightened his grip on my throat. The others closed in, reaching, grabbing, pulling me down into the press of rotting flesh and accusing eyes. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "God, I'm so sorry." "Sorry isn't enough." The hallucination shattered like glass. I was back in the maintenance tunnel, but changed. The walls had turned to meat, pulsing with veins, breathing with the facility's collective respiration. The mirror still showed the faces, but they were frozen now, paused mid-scream. Miriam stood before me, not the possessed version from the core lab, something closer to human, though her eyes still held that terrible darkness. "You're fighting it," she said. "Don't. It only makes the integration more painful." I tried to move. Couldn't. My body was locked in place, muscles refusing commands. "What did you do to me?" "Nothing. This is you doing it to yourself. The entity doesn't force, it invites. But once you look too long, once you touch the glass, once you accept the invitation, She gestured at the tunnel around us. There's no refusing. You're already part of the frequency. You just haven't finished downloading yet. Downloading, I repeated, tasting blood. I'd bitten my tongue during the visions. We're not computers, aren't we? Electrical impulses in meat. Ones and zeros firing across synapses. The only difference between human consciousness and artificial intelligence is the substrate. And Project Blackwater discovered how to change that substrate, how to transfer consciousness from flesh to something else. The frequency. The frequency. She smiled, sad and distant. I volunteered, 3 months ago. DARPA wanted to test the transfer protocol. I said yes. Do you know why? I didn't answer. Because I was dying. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. 3 months to live. They offered me immortality. Not in the flesh. That was compromised. But as consciousness itself. Pure thought. Pure existence. I could touch the frequency. Become part of something infinite. You're not infinite. You're insane, perhaps. But I'm also transcendent. I experience time non-linearly now. I exist in every moment simultaneously. I am in 1944 watching the first experiment. I am here now. I am in 2087 when the facility is finally excavated. The temptation was worse than the horror, because she was right. I was tired. 15 years of impossible decisions, of carrying dead friends, of lying to families about how their sons and daughters died doing something meaningful. And for what? So the wars could continue? So more kids could learn to kill and die in deserts and jungles and mountains that didn't matter to anyone except the corpses buried there? The entity offered an end to all of it. Yes, Miriam whispered, reading my thoughts. Finally. Accept it. Accept us. Her hand pressed against my chest. I felt something inside me respond. That presence that had been growing since we entered. It surged toward her touch, eager, ready to merge. The mirror beside us showed my reflection. It was changing. Eyes darkening. Smile widening. Becoming something other. Let go, Miriam said. Let us in. I was going to do it. God help me, I was ready. Then I saw her wedding ring, a small detail, gold band, simple, on her left hand. And I remembered her file, divorced, 2 children, next of kin listed as her mother in Boston. She'd taken the ring off years ago, moved on, started over. But her reflection wore it. Her reflection showed Miriam as she'd been once, before the cancer, before DARPA, before Project Blackwater. Happy, whole, human. You're not transcendent, I said quietly. You're trapped. Her expression flickered. What? You said you experience time non-linearly, that you're everywhere at once, but you keep coming back here, to this moment, to this place. You're not infinite. You're a recording stuck on loop, playing the same scene forever, convincing yourself it's evolution. No, I chose this. You chose to die. But the frequency didn't let you. It caught you in the middle, between states. And now you can't finish either way. You're not Dr. Miriam Chen anymore. You're just her ghost, trapped in a machine that won't let you rest. She stepped back, hand dropping. For just a moment, the darkness in her eyes cleared. The real Miriam surfaced. She expected retreat. Instead, I closed the distance, grabbed her shoulders, looked directly into those black eyes. Dr. Chen, if any part of you is still in there, if you can still choose, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Understanding flickered across her face. Do it, she whispered, her real voice breaking through. Please, let me rest. I pulled the pin on her vest. Not my grenade, Hers, the one DARPA had issued, the one I'd noticed during briefing. Thermite, designed to destroy classified materials. I'd thought it strange that a scientist needed one. Now I understood. Final failsafe. If the mission went wrong, if the frequency couldn't be contained, burn it all. Burn the data, the equipment, the flesh that carried it. Burn the bridge. "Thank you," Miriam said, and for a moment she was human again, relieved, ready. The thermite ignited, 3,000 degrees, instantaneous. Miriam's body evaporated. The cables and wires connected to her flashed white hot, carrying the heat back through the facility's networks, through the machinery in the core lab, through the junction boxes that kept the corpses animated. The entity screamed, not sound concept. Pure rage and loss transmitted directly into my brain. The maintenance tunnel shook, walls cracking, ceiling dropping chunks of concrete. The mirror shattered, releasing faces that dissipated like smoke. And in the chaos, I ran. The facility was dying, or waking. I couldn't tell which. Every surface rippled, phasing between solid matter and something else. Consciousness made manifest, reality bleeding through from the frequency. Corridors twisted into impossible geometries. Gravity stuttered, catching me mid-stride, sending me tumbling across walls that had become floors. Behind me, the entity gave chase. It filled the tunnels now, no longer constrained to the core lab. A massive, churning consciousness, made of shadows and screaming faces, and the accumulated madness of 80 years. Where it touched, matter decayed. Steel rusted instantly. Concrete crumbled, the very atoms forgetting how to hold together. I had no map, no plan, just kept moving away from the screaming, toward anything that looked like up, like out, like escape. Rowan's voice echoed through the collapsing tunnels. "Don't open the door. Don't open the door. Don't open the door." Finn's laughter, high and broken. Miriam's last words, repeating, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And underneath it all, that presence inside me, growing stronger. The part of me that had already accepted the invitation, that wanted to turn around, wanted to join the collective, wanted to finally stop running. I stumbled into the central hub, the 5-spoke junction where we'd first entered. The duty desk was on fire now, papers burning without heat. The logbook lay open, and I saw new entries appearing in real time, writing themselves. October 2nd, 2025, 0847. Commander Locke attempts escape. October 2nd, 2025, 0848. Facility integration at 73%. October 2nd, 2025, 0849. Survival probability 0.02%. The entrance corridor yawned ahead. I could see daylight at the end. Impossible. It had been night when we entered, a square of blue sky and freedom. The entity poured into the hub from all 5 corridors simultaneously. It had stopped chasing. It was herding. "You cannot leave," it transmitted. "You are already us, have been, will be. Time is meaningless in the frequency. Watch me." I sprinted for the exit. The corridor stretched, elongating like taffy, daylight receding with each step. I ran harder, legs burning, lungs screaming, but the exit stayed exactly the same distance away. I wasn't moving, or I was moving through space that was moving backward at the same rate, creating the illusion of progress. The entity laughed with Finn's voice. They all run. They all fail. The walls pressed inward, the ceiling dropped. The corridor was becoming a coffin. I emerged onto the hillside, rolling through heather and mud, gasping clean air that tasted like life. Behind me, the facility entrance spewed black smoke. Or maybe it was the entity itself, trying to follow, unable to exist in sunlight. The ground shook, a low rumble, building to a roar. The hillside was collapsing, facility imploding, decades of decay finally catching up in seconds. I scrambled away, half crawling, as the earth opened up and swallowed Project Blackwater whole. When the dust settled, there was nothing left, just a depression in the earth, already filling with water from underground springs. In a week, it would be a pond. In a month, overgrown. In a year, forgotten, like it had never existed at all. The Jeep was exactly where we'd left it. I stared at it for a full minute, trying to process. Engine idling, heater running, coffee in the cup holder still warm, like we'd just stepped out moments ago instead of, how long? Hours? Days? I checked my watch, 11:47 p.m. That was wrong. We'd entered at dawn. Unless... I looked at the date display, October 31st, 1944. No, I whispered. But the Jeep was wrong too. Too modern. Our vehicle, our equipment from 2025, sitting in a timeline that predated it by 80 years. The radio crackled. Static, then a voice. Command to Field Team Alpha. Please respond. I grabbed the handset with shaking hands. This is Commander Locke. We've sustained casualties. Team members down. Facility destroyed. Requesting immediate extraction. Copy that, Commander. But we show your last check-in as 17 minutes ago. Are you sure about casualties? I looked around. The hillside was pristine, untouched. No collapsed earth, no smoke, no evidence of the facility at all. The GPS on the dashboard showed our position exactly where the briefing had indicated. But when I accessed the map database, there was no facility Blackwater, no Cold War research station, no military installation of any kind. Commander, you still there? Affirmative. I need to speak with Dr. Chen. Then, sir, we don't have anyone by that name on the manifest. DARPA liaison. She accompanied us in... Commander, you were solo on this op. Recon only. No team, no civilian support. Are you feeling all right? I looked at my hands, still covered in blood from the vent, from Miriam's vest, from everything. But in the rearview mirror, they were clean. No cuts, no dirt, no evidence of the last horrific hours. Sir, we're showing some unusual readings from your position. Electromagnetic disturbance, atmosphere. I made it to the forward operating base by dawn, actual dawn, sun breaking over real mountains, solid and present. The guards checked my ID, waved me through. Everything normal, everything by protocol. Except everyone I passed looked at me wrong. Not suspicious, not concerned, just aware. like they knew something I didn't. I reported to the commanding officer, delivered my after-action debrief, solo reconnaissance mission, found the suspected facility site, no structures present, possible intelligence error or classified demolition, recommended closure of file. He listened, nodded, said all the right things, but his eyes were dark, not pupil-dilated dark, black dark, entity dark. Good work, Commander. Take 48 hours leave, get some rest. You look like you've seen a ghost. When he smiled, I saw too many teeth. I left his office, walked to my quarters. Every person I passed had those same dark eyes. Every reflection in every window showed something slightly wrong. Movements delayed, expressions independent, watching. The facility hadn't collapsed. We hadn't escaped. We'd just moved deeper. I sat on my bunk, pulled out a cigarette with shaking hands. Hadn't smoked in 3 years, but I'd found a pack in my pocket. Didn't remember buying them. Lit one anyway. Tasted ash and copper. In the window glass, my reflection struck a match. I wasn't holding a match. My reflection's mouth moved, speaking words I couldn't hear. Its eyes were black as void, and behind it, just visible in the dim reflection, stood Rowan, Finn, and Miriam. All of them watching. All of them smiling. My reflection reached toward the glass, palm pressed against the barrier between us. And slowly, against every instinct, my real hand began to move, lifting, reaching, drawn by something I couldn't fight, didn't want to fight, because fighting was so exhausting, and the frequency promised rest, promised an end, promised. Not my radio, the facility's radio, Rowan's equipment, which should be buried under tons of collapsed earth, or lost in time, or never existed at all. But it was here, on my desk. The presence inside me surged, no longer foreign, but familiar. Welcome. I could feel the frequency now, vibrating at the edge of perception. I could hear them all. Every consciousness that had ever touched Project Blackwater. Millions of minds existing simultaneously across time. My reflection pressed its palm against the glass. This time, I pressed back. Our hands met. The glass rippled. The following was found in Commander's final transmission, recovered from base servers 3 months after his disappearance. No body was ever found. The audio file is corrupted, but the transcript is listed below. This is Commander James Locke, 4th Special Operations Group. If you're hearing this, I'm already gone. Or, I was never really here. It's hard to tell anymore. They asked me to recruit, to find others. Soldiers with clearance, scientists with curiosity. Anyone who might look at the right file, visit the right coordinates, think the right thoughts. I said no at first, but the frequency is patient, and it's so tired of being alone. If you're investigating this case, if you're reading the reports, if you're trying to understand what happened, stop. Close the file. Forget you ever heard the name Blackwater, because now you've thought about it, and that's all it takes. The invitation has been sent. We'll be waiting when you arrive.